Hey yo, what's going on guys? It's your boy Scatino, aka Scat, and welcome to my review of The Last of Us. Now, it's not really often that I actually make these kind of reviews. To be honest, it's not often that I do sort of video reviews. But I feel like The Last of Us really warrants my opinion. I believe, much hype game over the past 18 months, and I finally beat it yesterday. And I think, in my honest opinion, I definitely think the game lives up to the hype. I don't think it's going to be what everyone was expecting, but I think personally for me, from what I was expecting and what I was hoping for, I think Naughty Dog have delivered an absolutely fantastic game. And I think it's probably better than Uncharted 3, on par with Uncharted 2 in terms of quality, but I think storytelling, I think it just, it's head and shoulders above anything that's out at the moment. So I'm going to talk about the story just a little bit. I'm not going to go into any major detail because obviously it really is a story-heavy, character-driven game. And I don't want to get into any kind of specifics because I don't want to spoil it for everyone, especially for anyone who's still playing the game, who's watching this video now but who is still playing the game. So basically the game is set 20 years after this sort of this cordyceps fungal infection kind of takes over the planet. About 60% of the world's population is either dead or have been infected by this cordyceps fungi kind of thing. And we play as Joel. Joel and his friend Tess are kind of like these smugglers. Within the quarantine zone for where they're based, they're smuggling different kind of goods, weapons, food, all that kind of thing. But then, as chance so happens, they get asked to smuggle someone out of the quarantine zone, and that person ends up being Ellie. Let's just say Ellie is a special kind of girl, and there's a reason why she needs to be protected, and there's a reason why she really needs to be smuggled out of the quarantine zone where they're based in the first place, and seek refuge somewhere else. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I think in terms of like the character dynamics between Joel and Ellie throughout the whole game, in fact not just between Joel and Ellie, between all the characters, it's so fantastic to watch, and it's so immersive because the characters look, feel and sound just so natural. But you can feel the pressure that they're under, you can feel the emotions that they're going through, everything that these characters go through, you can feel it for them. I was constantly feeling the emotions with these characters. When something bad happens, I felt it. When something funny happens, I felt it. I was laughing with the characters when they were telling jokes. The writing and the dialogue is just really, really top notch in this game. And I must say, it took me about 13 hours to complete the game. 13 hours, 10 minutes to be precise. And it is quite a lengthy game, and it is a slow burner, so I wouldn't expect anyone to go into this game and expecting it to be, it's all about zombies, it's going to be fast action, it's going to go bam, 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 bang. It's not like that. It really is a story-based, character-driven game, and you need to stick with it. I mean, there may be low points, but once you immerse yourself into the game world and into the story, it doesn't feel like a chore to get through it whatsoever. It's a really enjoyable experience. So like I say, you feel for these characters, you feel for what they're going through. The game starts off slow, and it consistently builds up momentum, and the pace does quicken within the last 25% of the game. It really does quicken up. But I implore you just to stick with it because it is one of the most rewarding stories that you'll probably find out there at the moment. So that's really all I want to say about the story. I really enjoyed the story. Like I say, the story was fantastic. Characters were really enjoyable characters I felt for. Dialogue was fantastic. I'm not too sure where I sit about the whole ending at the moment. I'm not going to talk about the ending specifically, but if anyone's obviously beat the game up tonight, you probably know what I mean. I'm not sure where I stand with some of the decisions that were maybe made at the end. And it's one that I've been thinking about, and I'm like, well, really? You know? So I'm not too sure whether I'm for or against some of the decisions that were made. I think I'm going to play through the game again because I'm playing it on survival mode at the moment. So I'll probably see how I feel after the second time I beat it. But that's all I'm going to say on that. I think gameplay wise, in terms of like the combat mechanics, there are guns at your disposal, there are melee weapons at your disposal. I think the weapons at times can feel kind of clunky, the combat can feel kind of clunky, and I think maybe that's kind of a cheap way to make you feel sort of at a disadvantage. I mean, Naughty Dog are touting the whole, it is a survival game. You're going to be limited ammo and make every shot count, weapons are at a premium, this kind of thing. I never really felt like I was completely out of my depth in any situation. I was playing the game on normal. I never really felt like I was out of my depth. I always seemed to have just about enough ammo and weapons for any given situation. However, the combat did feel kind of clunky at times, which makes you feel at a disadvantage. And like I say, because I just about had enough ammo and weapons for any situation, it did make every sort of combat experience really tense, because I was kind of like getting through it by the skin of my teeth, basically. So I'm presuming that's kind of what Naughty Dog wanted to make you feel like, whoa, I only just made it that time. And that was just a constant feeling throughout the whole game. I never actually believe I was like this, big ass Power Ranger, a Rambo type thing. I could take anyone out. I constantly did feel at a disadvantage. Whether you want to put that down to, the controls or the design of the game, that's down to you. But I think it worked in the context of the whole game being a survival game. I think that worked. Maybe in a cheap way, but still I think it worked for how it made me feel. Graphically, I can't fault this game. Graphically, this game is just such a technical achievement. It really is, in terms of animation, in terms of lighting. It's just the rendering of the environments. It's just fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. Because there's so much detail and so many things going on in this game, it is prone to dropping frames. Especially during the more hectic combat situations, you can expect it to drop some frames. Not enough where it becomes unplayable, but it can become noticeable. With some input lag and things like that. But it never kind of drawn me out of the experience totally. It was just, I could feel where it was dropping frames a bit, where the engine was coming, it under heavy fire basically. The engine was coming under heavy fire, it was struggling to cope. But, when you see this game and you just see how Naughty Dog have made this such an immersive world, from the dilapidated buildings and the abandoned houses. You walk through these houses because you're looking for loot, and you just see the way these houses have been left, or how bandits have come in and they've torn the place apart looking for food, looking for supplies, and it just immerses you in the world. You'll be walking down this abandoned street and there'll be graffiti all over the wall saying no trespassers will shoot and things like that, and you just get a sense of the kind of stories that have happened separate from Joel and Ellie, you know, and you can find like little diaries and notes throughout the world to give you some form of like backstory about, you know, different characters in the world and how they're struggling to survive and the things they've gone through. It really is just such an achievement on that level. The graphics to me look absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of got that grainy feeling, you know, like the sort of grainy, gritty feeling, kind of like it's reminiscent of the Walking Dead Blu-ray. If you've watched The Walking Dead season 1 especially on Blu-ray, it's kind of got that grainy feel to the image quality. It kind of looks like that in places, which I think really adds to it as well. But honestly, graphically, this game is just absolutely stunning to look at. It really, really is. And when you see, you know, the environments coupled with the animations of the characters and the way the characters interact with the environments, it is just on another level. Naughty Dog have really mastered this generation in terms of quality in the graphics and immersiveness from what they can do with the environments and the graphics. They've really mastered what it means to, you know, get the power out of the PlayStation 3. It's been Naughty Dog all the way through this generation, you know. Honestly, I thought they probably peaked with Uncharted 2 and 3. Well, Uncharted 3 on a more technical aspect, but I think Naughty Dog I think The Last of Us is just much better with the sort of nuances and the subtlety of the kind of things they've added into the game this time around. I think it really is that good. You know, I think multiplayer is the biggest drawback of the game, in my honest opinion. I really don't think it's a fun multiplayer. It's sort of like a twist on, you know, Team Deathmatch, which I enjoy. But I think the whole stealth type element of the multiplayer, where, you know, you constantly crouch down and you're sneaking around, the weapons don't really feel that fun to use. I'm not a big fan of this multiplayer, which is a shame because Naughty Dog were touting that this is going to be the best multiplayer that they've created. You know, like Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, The Last of Us. I really think this is actually the worst one out of the three, if I'm quite honest. It just, you know, the game modes aren't really varied. I think the whole meta game with your Facebook friends and, you know, people joining your faction, I think it's just really, I don't know, I think, yeah, so I think, you know, like the whole meta game with like your Facebook friends and, you know, recruiting them into your factions, I just don't think it's a really fun aspect, and it's just kind of boring. I mean, I think with Naughty Dog, I think they tried to be different but samey at the same time. I think Uncharted 2's multiplayer was a fantastic multiplayer because it was simple. It kept what was fun about the main campaign and incorporated that into the multiplayer and just kept it simple, you know, and it was a really fun multiplayer, Uncharted 2. Uncharted 3 come along, it kept some of the same mechanics but then went to Call of Duty with all the perks and boosters and things like that. And now The Last of Us, I think they tried to strip it away, but yet made it less fun because it's more stealth. I mean, if people are into that kind of thing, then, you know, that's fair enough. But for me, crouching around in a team deathmatch is not fun. I think crouching around and being stealthy in a team deathmatch scenario is about as fun as it is to camp, in my honest opinion. I mean, you could argue that Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, they had stealth elements, but to me, the stealth elements of them was hanging on a ledge and the guy walking above and you grab him and throw him over the ledge. You know, that was stealth to me and that was fun. Whereas just crouching around and creeping forward, you know, that ain't fun to me. So I think the multiplayer's a letdown. It's not really something I'm going to keep on with other than to get trophies. So, yeah, but what can I say? I think overall, because this review's gone on now quite a bit, I think overall The Last of Us lived up to the hype, in my opinion. I think it's an absolutely fantastic game. Naughty Dog again have just outdone themselves. They've shown again to me why I think they're the best developers of this generation, hands down. I think, it's just head and shoulders above a lot of the games that are already out there at the moment. It really is. I think one of the reasons I like it, and one of the reasons it's my game of the year so far, is because it's just a more realistic concept, a more realistic story. The Cordyceps fungus is a very real concept because it's a real thing that affects like insects and ants and everything. Whereas a story like Bioshock Infinite, although that was a fantastic game, a fantastic story, it's not really realistic. It's probably more imaginative, as my friend Brooklyn Knight One was saying on the Brooklyn King Game Manx podcast last night. It's probably the more imaginative story out of the two, Bioshock Infinite and The Last of Us. But then again, I think, well, in terms of realism, in terms of me to connect with the characters on an emotional level, then I have to give the edge to The Last of Us, because it's a kind of a very real scenario these people are going through, and one that, at one point in time we could all find ourselves. It's more realistic to go through that kind of scenario where, there's this major mass infection going on, people are being quarantined, to say living in a city in the sky, So I think on a more realistic level where I can connect with the characters, I think I've got to give the edge to The Last of Us. So yeah, I mean, I'm not comparing the two games. I'm not comparing The Last of Us and Bioshock. I just, up until The Last of Us come out, Bioshock was my game of the year because of the story was phenomenal. But I think now Last of Us is out, that's now took its crown. And honestly, it's going to be really, really difficult for anything to beat The Last of Us. I think at this point, I think in terms of this generation coming out this year, we've got GTA 5. I think that's like the last major release of this generation, or up until, the new consoles come out. I don't think anything on the new consoles are going to be my game of the year at launch anyway. Watch Dogs, Battlefield 4, and Killzone Shadowfall, I don't think any of them are going to end up being what I consider my game of the year. But, there's always surprises. I think just thus far, up until this point, The Last of Us is my game of the year. I'm not going to score it. I really don't want to give it a score. I'm just going to hold off on the score. I think I've told you about, the negatives about the game. I think I've told you about the positives, and I think the positives far outweigh the negatives with this game. It's not a perfect game by any means, but it's just head and shoulders above as an overall package in terms of the campaign. I think it's just head and shoulders above a lot of the games that are being released now. So yeah, that's it from me. So hope you all enjoyed my review. I'm sorry that it's kind of long-winded, but there's a lot to talk about with this game. As always, rate, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Yeah, and that's it from me. So I'm your boy Scatinio, and I'm out. Peace.